Just me and the very loudly mooing cows this morning. This medium fuel canister actually lasted me the entirety of the stretch. It's pretty much done now. You can tell because when I turn it up, it doesn't actually, go on anymore. So I'm just going to let it drain and be done. I do have a small one with me that I thought I might need, but yeah, 7-8 days. Trying to judge consumables out here is always kind of a trick because you don't know what's going to go on. Higher altitude, it seems to, and colder weather, I seem to burn through fuel a bit more versus if I'm out in the desert. And it also depends what I'm cooking. Since I'm just doing the minute rice, it's not like I have to sit there and stir and cook something. Some of the pasta meals I've seen will require like 10 minutes of cooking. Minute rice, just warm it up and you're good. Same with toilet paper. I think the best way to court gastric disaster is trying to only bring just enough toilet paper. Or in my case, those like baby wipes I use. And then of course you have the most important consumable for a through hike. Coffee. I must talk about this stuff a lot or something, because at one point last year on the AT, I actually had 2 full Ziplocs of coffee packets because nice people had shown up and brought me some, and I wasn't going to say no to coffee, especially the Via Colombian can occasionally be difficult to locate. I've got a squirrel who's very much not happy that I'm camped here. So the only problem with hiking late is it often gets hard to find these established campsites. They're just off the trail. I barely saw this one, and that was only after wandering around. That was generally far less of an issue on the PCT AT, where most of the campsites were, like directly off the trail. And there was a footpath going to them. So this is an exciting morning because I have no idea what the hell is going to happen. I could show up at South Pass, they could just have my package, and there could have been an issue with the tracking number. Or it might be lost in the mail, delayed, etc., and I could end up in Lander, at which point, who knows what happens. Slight possibility I could end up with a hotel room, which would be nice. Showers, food, pizza, maybe. But most likely I'd run in, just have to buy a bunch of stuff, and then we have to see if we could convince the nice South Pass people to forward on my box so all that doesn't go to waste. At least it wasn't one of those boxes that had shoes or any like big money items. It's just food, but still, as I half expected, the chafing issues just kind of magically went away. The only issue I had yesterday in 24 miles was one spot on my back had started to rub, which usually just means I haven't been cleaning up enough, which gets harder in between water sources. I had a hell of a time with that on the PCT. My entire back waistline was marked up, and it ended up being a combination of salt buildup on my clothes and using my hip belt too much. Once I started just keeping that unclipped for at least part of the day, that seemed to really help. Once I leave South Pass, it looks like about a 15-mile water carry. A lot of the water sources or creeks are dry, it looks like, and have been for a while. But it's manageable distances. You start to get to 20 plus miles, that becomes a real pain, just because you have to balance. If I carry a whole bunch of weight on my back, I'm going to sweat more, go slower, use more water. It is also get rid of my bear spray day, since I'm pretty much out of grizzly country at this point. Black bears, you don't need bear spray for. It's just intended for grizzlies because they're territorial and charge, and that can theoretically stop a charging grizzly. Black bear charges you, it's a bluff charge, 99 times out of 100. Of course, when you ask the bear experts, how do you tell if it's a bluff charge? It's, well, if they stop, then it was a bluff charge, but... Cows around here don't seem to be a big fan of wigwam. This is US Highway 28. If I were to hitch in, Lander is about 35 miles that way. Some people have reported like 2-hour hitches here. But if I go straight for a couple more miles, South Pass City or what it is right on the trail. And so I sent a package there. There's also something called Atlantic City that's about 1.3 miles off the trail, which would have been my fallback if we hadn't decided on South Basin. It has a B&B and I think some food, which, believe me, I'm horribly tempted to hike, 2.5 miles or so just to be able to get some hot food, but schedule. Hooray for Cowgates. So this is an example of one of the creeks out here called Dead Ox Creek, which sounds, really appealing. There are puddles of water, but they're, topped by dollops of cow splat. Oh, big herd. And welcome to ye old South Pass City. And there's not even a gate everywhere. At least there's a low spot to duck under. Okay, moment of truth. And that is a beautiful sight. Except, I have to carry it now. At long last, I get to say goodbye to my grizzly spray. Kind of a cool little old mining town to pass through. And since I am stuck waiting for my battery to charge, I decided to make the ramen that Tater sent me. I am kind of jealous of the bike packers in this section though. They're making it water to water a little easier. It was windy enough to play havoc with my audio, but while I was sitting around for hours waiting for my battery, 3 other thru hikers showed up that I knew. Poles, Ranger, and of course Zach Galifianakis, who had gone into Lander and passed me by again. In addition to having a decent hiker box, they also had a register so I could see who was up ahead of me. So I was actually really efficient repackaging my food and everything, but unfortunately the combination of having to wait for my batteries since I was low on power and trying to get some things uploaded has kept me here way, way too late. So it's now after 4 o'clock. And I've gone all of 5 miles. That's one thing, because I can camp, I got plenty of food. The next water is about 14 miles, so I'm gonna have to see. I can get by with less water if I'm careful, but my initial plan had been to spend a little less time here and then get to that 14-mile water mark. So this is the red line through here. Though of course, there are people on far out finding efficient road walks through here. Also, that would be Atlantic City, the other town back here. So at this point, I either keep walking until there's water or I don't get coffee in the morning. Guess which way I'm going. Well, at least I get pretty sunsets. Okay, supposedly there should be water down there somewhere. I was actually willing to push it a little further in the dark if I had to, but I made good time on the flats and got to this point where I could get some water. So I'm gonna call it home sweet home for the night.